It was a highly anticipated call. Now, in his first phone conversation with Chinese President Xi Jinping, U.S. President Joe Biden criticized what he sees as, quote, unfair economic practices. At the same time, he announced that heavy tariffs would remain in place and new restrictions for certain technology exports may be implemented. China stressed the need to uphold dialogue and called for tolerance of differing political views. It was the first phone call between the U.S. and Chinese presidents since last March. A short while ago, I spoke to Fraser Howey, China analyst and book author, and I asked him what in the call struck him as most interesting in terms of economic and trade policy.
Sure. Well, I think the most obvious thing is that he isn't winding back the trade measures that Trump had put in place. You know, Biden has done a lot of executive orders rolling back the damage that he sees that Trump has done. And yet when it comes to tariffs, when it comes to sanctions on Chinese companies, they're all still very much in force. And he certainly isn't sort of letting his guard down, and there's no back to normal or back to usual when it comes to China.
Is it wise then to keep up this tough stance on China, keeping up the tariffs, even announcing new restrictions on technology exports?
Well, a case of it defines sort of wise, if you like, in the sense that China for many years has been taking liberties in the world economy. Geopolitically, it's been taking liberties in South China Sea, repression in Xinjiang, Tibet, and now most obviously in Hong Kong. And so from that, they all deserve a response. And I think it's been basically the West and the rest of the world that just failed to respond earlier. So I wouldn't necessarily say it's not a case of being wise or not. These measures have ultimately been long overdue.
A U.S. official said President Biden's dealing with Beijing would be, quote, practical, hard-headed, and clear-eyed. What does China expect that to mean?
I think, to be honest, I think they're guessing. I think Trump was very easy to read because Trump basically wanted Trump's name in the lights and as much attention around him as possible. He wanted to be flattered and adored. And so that was very easy to play to Trump. I think Biden's going to be much harder. He's not going to. They're not going to be able to flatter him as they did Trump. I think he's going to be much tougher on China because he's going to be more coordinated on China and try and work with allies. So I think the Chinese are very concerned as to where things are going to go.
Nevertheless, Chinese officials have expressed cautious optimism that relations with the U.S. will improve under President Biden. Do you share this optimism? And if so, in which areas could the ice be thawing?
Look, I think obviously everyone expresses optimism to start with, then the reality hits. I think, though, there's clearly going to be a different sort of, Biden is certainly going to be tough. He's going to be more coordinated. It's going to be a much more civil dialogue. It's going to be a much more logical dialogue. It's not going to be sort of the fire and thunder of the Trump years with a lot of noise, sound, and fury. So it's going to be a much more sort of civil type of discussion. There's clearly areas where they need to work together. As the world's two largest economies, they obviously have a huge role to play in the global economy in terms of climate change, pandemic. There's a number of areas where they will need to at least pull in the right direction, if not outright cooperate. So they will have to work together. But at the same time, America is going to be much tougher for China to handle going forward.
Fraser, how do you see U.S.-China relations in the immediate future then? It doesn't look like Beijing is willing to make any concessions when it comes to human rights, the status of Hong Kong or Taiwan or other areas where the U.S. and its allies are putting pressure on China.
Yeah, no, I don't see we're going to see any concessions immediately out of China. I think in the States as well, nothing's going to be rolled back. I think there's probably going to be a bit of a sort of status quo lull, nothing new in the immediate future. Biden's going to want to get all his team in place, have a thorough review of where things stand, and then move it forward. So I would not quite a honeymoon period, but I don't expect any major moves in the immediate term.
Fraser Howey, thank you for your thoughts.
Thank you very much.